Who? Yeah, I mean, the only reason that I'm here and Sam and I created the show in season 1, I mean, the only reason we wanted to do it in the first place came from being a fan. I mean, that was like the origin of it, because there'd be no point in doing this show if you were just doing it as a kind of as a job. It's like I don't think it would have the resonance I hope that it has for the fans, and I think, and honestly, creatively for us, like to be able to return to some of these characters is amazing.
Your inspiration for the second season?
You know, we, from the beginning, when we were talking about the iconic characters of Stephen King and the pieces of the story that we hadn't seen before, Sam and I had always talked about the idea of Annie Wilkes and how she got to keeping Paul Sheldon in a bed and cutting his feet off, or sledgehammering his feet in the movie. You know, and the idea of how she became that person, how she became that super fan. I mean, and part of what was, I think, really interesting was to think about it. He wrote that book 33 years ago, before the word toxic fandom or any of those ideas were really in the mainstream. You know, I mean, he was really ahead of his time. And so trying to think about, like, and as a super fan myself, as a Stephen King super fan myself, like, I think there was always a part of me that really felt connected to Annie and her toxic fandom, if you will. And so, but the question of, like, how she got there and how she arrived at such a crazy place, and what is the humanity that kind of it lurks underneath her, was really something that from the beginning we were always excited to do. And in season 1 we wanted to kind of build or write a song in the key of Stephen King without sort of going so directly into the canon, but the idea was always to be able to do both of those things, and that's where Annie felt like the sort of perfect way in decision to make.
Okay, I have a question on a similar vein. How do you decide what Stephen King property you're going to do next? Is there like a grand plan?
You know, there's a grand plan in one sense, which is that the idea was always that we were going to introduce threads in each season, and then eventually circle back to some of those threads and do it in unexpected ways that people maybe don't see coming. But and so in that sense, there has always been a grand plan. But you know, I think that if you think about the way that people sort of plan universes, I would say there's sort of two sides to that, two ends of the spectrum. One is the J.K. Rowling end of the spectrum, and one is the Stephen King end of the spectrum. In that, like, Stephen, I think, takes an approach which is like the characters sort of emerge and start to speak to him, and then find their ways into new stories in kind of unexpected ways. Whereas I think J.K. Rowling sort of had this enormous, you know, every character and every move that they're going to make. And I think that in an anthology format, part of what's fun about that, about telling a Stephen King story that way, is that you get to start over sort of each season, and you get to introduce characters and introduce fans to and the audience to a new set of characters and a new story. And so you don't have to have seen season 1, but the people who are watching all along are going to be rewarded as they keep the faith.
So for this season, are the episodes dropping at once, or are they being released weekly? Like
3 episodes on the first night, and then weekly after that, which is what we did last year.
So
also.
is that a challenge with so many streaming services? It's like here, everybody gets to binge it, whereas you have to make sure you keep people coming back week after week. What are some of the challenges there?
It's funny because, you know, a lot of the new streaming services, Apple, they're all doing weekly releases. Like, and I think part of it is that, you know, I love keeping up with the conversation on a TV show, and I find that when you're watching, because God knows, like when The Crown comes out, I'll just watch all 10 episodes, you know, immediately. And so it's like, but there's something about the sort of being able to be a part of a community of people watching a show that feels exciting still to me. And so, you know, and I find myself on Twitter and on Reddit, and like the shows that I love following along and being a part of that. And so I don't know. I think
there used to be those water cooler conversations.
Yeah.
Right.
You come in, hey, did you see?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of part of the communal experience, the church of television, if you will.
Yeah, but if you have it weekly releases, the show lives longer. Because, for example, the Netflix shows, they die like in a month.
Yeah.
Forgetting about them.
Yeah.
I like maybe to from maple things. a lot in the first season. What's your favorite material to take from Stephen? Like your personal favorite?
You know, I mean, I think that it's like choosing among not my children but someone else's children. Like I think that the stories each sort of and the material each provides a different thing to me. It's like when I think about Needful Things, you bring up Needful Things. What I love about that story is that it is really about the devil coming to town and sort of leaning into people's natural bad inclinations and sort of drawing them out of them and making a little deal with the devil of each of them. And like that's a fascinating story to me. And like even if you take it out of the context of the convenience of the antique store or the it's like it doesn't matter. Like that's fundamentally a kind of universal story about making a deal with the devil. And so I think that like it is sort of variations on those themes that excite me most about a story like Needful Things. And then you have a story like Shawshank where like obviously the setting, never mind the movie and the book and the characters, the setting of Shawshank just has this kind of iconic feel to it. And so in season 1 that was certainly something that was a big part of the story.
Did you have that, because the anniversary coming up of Shawshank, did you kind of have that, we need to kind of weave that in a little bit?
No, I mean, and especially because I think that was really more in season 1 was the focus of that. I will say that we happen to be in a room with the great Tim Robbins somewhere, and so it is it was a dream to be able to work with Tim on this show, even though he's playing a character who's very different. Speak of the devil, I was just speaking of you.
Hey, hello everybody.
But playing a character that is so fundamentally different from Nancy Dufresne, I think was exciting to Tim and exciting to me, and in the same way that Sissy didn't want to play Carrie again, but that she was excited to kind of do our version of Stephen King.
Was that like a thing for you? Wanted to make sure you got the other actors like from because I think that was like a really cool thing for a like my dad lost it when she was like that's
yeah, it's funny, we didn't set out to do it. Like at the beginning, it wasn't like part of the plan, and especially because Bill, who sort of became Bill, it hadn't come out when we started filming Castle Rock season 1. So it wasn't even, and we didn't know what was going to happen with that movie. Nobody knew how big it was going to be. None of those things, and so we didn't like set out to sort of create a kind of Avengers of Stephen King casting phenomenon. But it obviously like happened that way in season 1, and then I had always wanted to work with Tim, and obviously he has this connection to Shawshank, and so it felt like an exciting opportunity to kind of keep it going. But I would call it more of a happy accident than a sort of intentional.
So do you have a plan for how many seasons this will go? Do you have a plan it out, or is this just a however long we will?
62 seasons, just the same number as Stephen's books, I think. I mean, I think that the truth is, that's a joke, but you could make infinite number of remixed Stephen King stories because there's so much opportunity, there's so many stories, there's so many, I mean, look, he's written 500 short stories. Like, you could do a whole season of Castle Rock that was just adapting all the short stories that people had never seen. And so, again, like, I think that for me, it's all about the sort of, the story that we set out to tell from the beginning, and these threads that I was talking about that sort of spin out over many seasons, and how can we kind of get to that? I won't tell you exactly how long that is, but
have we seen or will we see Randall Flagg?
Randall Flagg is certainly one of the characters that I love most, and he appears in so many forms, and that's something that I think is very interesting about the Randall Flagg character, is that you never kind of know which version of Randall Flagg you're going to get, so I will plead the fifth.
Are you going to do themes? Because first season did not have any.
this one is themed, are you going to do these, or is it going to be generalized going forward if you get additional seasons?
Well, I hope that there were some themes in season 1, but I mean, I think that in the sense, I think what you mean is like in the sense of
A focus, like Misery was
Yeah.
kind of like the pitch for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that this one, you know, if last season to me the focus was the town.
The
you
town
know?
itself.
Yeah, and so it was about introducing the town, and of course Shawshank and its role in the town. This season is really, you know, Annie is our way in, but at the same time, it's really a much bigger story than that. And you have this sort of tale of two cities. You have Salem's Lot, you have Castle Rock, and so I think that part of what feels exciting to me is even if, you know, Misery arrives on October 23rd, the truth is when Misery arrives, there's a lot more to it than just the beginning of the story.